Alright, today we're kind of going to bring everything together that we've been talking about so far. We're going to bring it all together on the Earth Layers foldable. We're going to start here at the top. Don't forget you do have a word bank down here at the bottom. We're going to start here at the top, and what you see is there's ocean and there's land. And we know under the ocean would be oceanic crust. We know that oceanic crust is a little more dense because the water is pushing down on it and making it compact. And over here, under our continent, we would have continental crust. In both of these areas, the continental and the oceanic, together make the compositional layer that we call the crust. Okay. And we know physically, with our physical layers, our next layer is the lithosphere. And the lithosphere encompasses the crust and the upper part of the mantle. This is where we find our tectonic plates. And it's also what we might call the crunchy layer. Right under the lithosphere, we find the asthenosphere. The asthenosphere is what the lithosphere floats on. We know this is the semi-solid plastic-like substance that's always moving. Okay. The lithosphere tectonic plates are floating on this asthenosphere. It's always moving around. It's kind of like jello. Under the asthenosphere is our thickest area of the mantle. It is called the mesosphere. It is our thickest layer. Okay. As we put all of these together, we have our upper mantle, we have our asthenosphere, and we have our mesosphere. This whole section would be considered our compositional layer called mantle. And finally we reach the center of the Earth, where we have the outer core and the inner core. What's super special about the outer core is it is liquid. Okay, it is a liquid made of mostly iron and nickel. It is actually responsible for our magnetic field. It controls the magnetic field around the Earth. Our inner core is opposite. It is a solid iron and nickel. So it's a little opposite because of the increased pressure. This is a solid. As we look at this, our compositional layer would be the core. We would put our inner core and our outer core together, and our compositional layer would be the core. And let's talk about density, pressure, and temperature for a minute. If you think about it, up here, where we're on the top, it's the least dense. And as we move down, that means the inner core is the most dense. Pressure works the same way. At the top, we have the least pressure, because there's not anything except gravity pushing down on us here. But here, all these layers are pushing down, with the inner core getting the most of it. So the inner core is the most pressure. And then finally, as we start at the top, we have our least heat. And we know as we go down, it gets hotter and hotter, with the inner core being as hot as the sun. So this layer has the most heat. Finally, what we're going to do is we're going to add some color, because when we add color, it makes it much easier to differentiate the different layers. So I'm going to add water, because I know this is my ocean. And under my ocean, I've got some oceanic crust. And I know this is going to be very dense because the ocean is pressing down on it. Then I have my continental crust. And I've got some mountains. And of course, then we have to have some grasslands. All right, our lithosphere is next. Remember, the lithosphere is that crunchy one where the tectonic plates are. So I'm going to make my lithosphere. And it is also considered the upper mantle plus the crust. Our asthenosphere is that ooey gooey, rich and chewy, always moving around like jello layer. So we're going to add that. And then the mesosphere is our thickest layer. The colors aren't important. You may certainly pick any colors you want, but it's nice to visually see the difference of each layer. Then we have our outer core, remembering that our outer core is liquid. Super important to remember that as liquid. It's always flowing, and it's causing our magnetic field around the Earth. Without it, we would not have the magnetic field, and thus we wouldn't have an atmosphere. And finally, we have our inner core, which is solid because of all that increased pressure. And now you have a great representation of your compositional and physical layers of the Earth.